Great. So again, we're going into workforce management in Dayforce, and this is for the support services team again. So let's go ahead and get started. I do have my team online, I believe, so they'll be able to assist with any questions that you may have. So let's go ahead and get started. So of course, today's agenda is we're gonna do onboarding, position changes, compensation changes, employee updates, and offboarding. But the first one that we're gonna start with this morning from 11 to 12 is gonna be the onboarding. And then this afternoon at 1, we do have the changes, and that will include offboarding as well. Okay, so we do have two sessions, so we'll go ahead and get started with the onboarding. So the introduction is that the Navajo Nation has begun the implementation of the newly purchased ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System, which will replace the legacy system, which is currently JD Edwards. The new system incorporates the processing, maintenance, and security of employee data across the Navajo Nation. And basically, we're moving from paper processing to electronic submissions. Okay, so here is the support services team. We do have Ranelia Vicente, Kendra Bedoni, Ainan Johns, all senior HR technicians. And of course, I didn't include myself and Garrett, but we are part of their team. And every now, we do have Valerie, I must say Juanica, Valerie Nez, who also assists support services as well. So for onboarding, so just the quote that we had in here, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. So that's what we're doing with this ERP system. So we're going to go on to the onboarding workflow. So basically, it's just, what kind of recruitment went into and so forth and how it gets to our section for onboarding. Of course, you have advertisement where the hiring manager creates a requisition through Dayforce to advertise any vacant positions. Interviews, once advertisement is closed, you get your qualification assessments completed and you have your qualified applicants that are referred to the hiring managers through Dayforce, then that's where interviews are scheduled by the hiring manager or their admin staff. From there, there's the selection, and that's based off of the review of the application, the results of employment reference check, and then of course the interview, and that's where the hiring manager will make their selection in Dayforce. So I know that we're trying to put emphasis on the employment reference checks. I hope everybody is starting to do that with their interviews and their selection process. From there, it goes to the offer letter. From this point, the hiring manager will notify the applicant of their selection, and that's how they'll make the offer through Dayforce. Of course, all of this is being done outside of the system, and it's just putting it into the system now that will assist in completing these tasks. So just a note here, the hiring manager does have the option to request for a salary assessment, and this should be done before an offer is made. So I know that we do have some programs that complete that after the fact. So just wanted to point that out, that before you make the offer to an applicant, you should get a salary assessment completed if you think that their qualifications exceed the minimum. So once the applicant accepts the offer, then what happens is the hiring manager is ready to complete the onboarding process in Dayforce. So it's like electronic PAF, to say that you'll be entering this information in the system. So I know there was a question in the chat earlier about the required supporting documents. There will still be a need for the required supporting documents. And the reason being is that this becomes a part of their personnel file, but it will actually be in Dayforce. So that's why this information is still required. So I do have required supporting documents. We do have the new hire, we have temp hire, we have political appointment. For the new hire, it would be justification memo and just a copy of their SS card, driver's license, and CIB. If they were, DPM is really trying to get applicants to submit all their documentation beforehand when they're going through the application process. However, majority do not attach any documents. So that's why we're still asking for this if it's not already part of their packet. So again, it's just a copy of the SS card, driver's license, CIB, and then with the background check, if they do have criteria 1 for that position that they're being hired into, it would require the favorable determination notice. So, but if they're doing like provisional hire, then, that is monitored by Office of Background Investigation. So unfortunately, OBI is not part of the platform of the ERP system. So all of that still has to be done. So in this case, if a favorable determination, if the position carries a criteria 1, they will have to have that favorable determination notice before they can be onboarded. For temporary hire, the same justification memo, copy of the SS, driver's license, CIB, copy of individual assessment, and Navajo Nation application. In cases that the position is not advertised, then it would go through the individual assessment. So these documents would be required. And then we have a political appointment. That one's just the appointment letter, the copy of the SS card, driver's license, CIB, and their Navajo Nation application. So again, this still does become part of their record, their personnel file here with DPM. So we still require those documents. So there are situations where there may be additional supporting documents that are required. So favorable determination. Again, I did mention that if the position does hold criteria number 1, that they will have to have that favorable determination before they can be onboarded. The other is the above entry, the salary assessment memo. Again, before an offer can be made, that salary assessment should be completed beforehand and not after the fact. That also plays an important part of the effective date. So does the favorable determination. Other memos that may need to be required are hiring of a non-Navajo, a temporary hire utilizing a regular status position. We do have departments that hire temporary employees using a vacant position. So, but that does require approval from our HR director. The other is hiring utilizing a prior requisition referral appointment letter. In that case, what happens is that we do have programs, let's say, for instance, an office specialist, what happens is we could get like 50 applicants. The position may have 2, they might have a field office specialist at the field office. And what could happen is they hire the office specialist here at Central, and let's say they just want to utilize that same referral to hire for the field office. So you can do that. Programs are allowed to do that. It just requires approval from our HR director again, and it's just a memo again requesting, excuse me, requesting to utilize a prior referral. I don't know why I have appointment letter. Just ignore that. Sorry. Okay, so we're gonna go into the onboarding portion right now. Okay, so I just have a few steps here of how to get to that role for a new hire. So let's say you're not going through the recruitment process. Maybe you still have the documents, the referral paper. I'm sorry, the paper referral documents, and you're still hiring from like a month or 2 months ago. We still have programs that use referrals from almost a year ago to hire. So if your documents are not in Dayforce, then this is how you would enter for a new hire. So for onboarding, you would log on to Dayforce, select your manager role. Again, you're only able to do this through a manager role. You click on the people icon on the toolbar, click on action, a drop down will appear. So I have step-by-steps, and we're working on videos to include with our PowerPoint. So I do have one that I'm going to show here. Hopefully you guys are able to see. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and play, but I will go through the live demonstration. And then they're clicking next. So they selected the manager role and then they went to next. And then from here, this is where what will show up once you log in. And you'll go to the people icon. Again, people have different references, the Three Amigos, the boy band. So from here, you go to action, you go to hiring, you go to new hire, and this is the form, the onboarding form that will appear. And then from there, this is where you would enter all the information. Again, basically in electronic PAF, that's where you would enter the information. So, but we are going to be posting this PowerPoint along with the videos on our ERP training on our DPM website. So from here, we do have the new hire position management form. I think I have, okay, this is the new. So if you look at it, the PowerPoint, what I have up, it does highlight the yellow fields or the fields that are highlighted in yellow. Those are the required fields that are needed to be filled out. Again, we did try to work with Dayforce to get asterisks on the fields that are required. Some of them don't have that red asterisk. So from here, what we would need is the pay group, the first name, middle name optional, last name, the marital status, social security number, birth date, citizenship, language, hire date, and onboarding policy. Some individuals or employees may not have an onboarding policy. It is for regular status employees. So we are working on setting up a onboarding policy for temporary. So hopefully we can get that soon. So, but if you're hiring a temp, you wouldn't, or a youth participant, you wouldn't need to select an onboarding policy and you wouldn't need to indicate an onboarding date. The next section would be the gender. So this is just a standard requirement of the Dayforce system. So here, that's where the warning at the end when Cody was going through the steps, that's that warning that came up. So we can look at that. Then here you would just do the add, and that's how you would enter the country, the state, province, and the assigned sex and gender identity. So the next portion would be the new hire form, position man, and this would be the address. Of course, everybody is aware of the correspondence or the communication that has gone out to indicate that we do need a physical address for employees. However, you would still need to go in, or the employee could go in after the onboarding is completed and they're set up in Dayforce. They would be able to go in and add a mailing address, but for this portion, you would indicate the physical address. So be address line 1. Some individuals do use address line 2, but that would just depend on where the residence is. The city, the zip or postal code, the country, the state, province, and then their home phone number. So the county with address line 2, county, and then the email are optional. If you do have that information, then please fill out those fields as well. So now we're going to the primary position. The primary position is really important, and this information is based off of the hierarchy, the organizational structure. So whatever your department had submitted as far as your organizational chart, that's how this information is set up. So you have the managing position, which is the manager. You have the position name, and that position name is the position that the applicant is hired for. And then once you get that information, the primary location, once you do the drop down, it'll automatically have that primary location. So it's really important to know who the manager is, or their name, or even if you have their position number or even their AB number, then we could do that as well. You could put that information and it'll bring up the individual. And then the position name, of course, you would need the position in there. Okay? And if you're having areas with this, or if you're having issues with this area, you can reach out to our department. Again, where it's based off of the organizational chart that was submitted. We do have programs that call us say, it's incorrect, but they have different information than what was submitted on the organizational chart. So then they would have to go back and get that revised if it's incorrect. So now this is the status and compensation. We do have a guide which will also be uploaded onto our website. So there's the status, the pay type, pay class, shift rotation, time off policy, time entry, pay policy, holiday group schedule rule policy. I'm not going to go over the shift trading and the overtime because we don't have anything set up for that. We have the payroll policy, entitlement policy, and then we also have employee group and schedule change policy, which doesn't have any information. Weekly hours and the base rate. So those, the highlighted fields are the ones that are required to be filled out. We did again try to have Dayforce, take out the fields that are not required. However, we were able to get that completed. So, but I'll go into more detail once I go through the demo on what each of these fields mean and what information you would be looking for. And then emergency contacts, again, if your applicant is able to provide this information, this is where you would fill it out with the first name, middle name, last name, the relationship, and so forth with their contact information. If you don't have it, that's fine. It's just that the employee would need to go in and update this once their information is in Dayforce. And then user credentials, that one would automatically, once we do the onboarding policy, this would automatically, they already have a role assigned, okay? So we'll go on to the next. So for onboarding rule, okay, where we got that. So again, supporting documents, this is where you would upload it. So once you click upload, that little box will show up again, like what Cody had presented. And that's where you can put your attachments in, and that will show up at the bottom once it's completed. Then once you're done filling out information, you'll click submit. And again, there is a workflow management process that it goes through. Once the department submits it, it comes to DPM where we will review, make sure that all the information is filled out correctly, that and that all the fields are completed and that the attachments are also attached. If there are no supporting documents, we would be able to reject it. So just make sure the supporting documents are attached, okay? So just going through the workflow, like we said, the onboarding workflow process. So that's where the manager would be entering the information for the applicant. And then it would be routed to support services. So it's just a group of individuals, the individuals within the support services section that will get this notification. And that's where we would review the information and we would make a decision. If we accept it, everything's correct, everything's filled out, all the fields are complete, we have the attachments, supporting documents, then that's where we would accept it, it would process through, and then it would go notification for approval, and then that's how it would get input into Dayforce or uploaded into Dayforce. So now let's say you submit it, and again, maybe there's the only reason I think we would be, rejecting it is if there's no supporting documents. But other than that, we would assist the programs in making some updates, but also communicating that to whoever submitted the new hire form. So then the notification will go out. So either way, you would get notification for both. The manager would get notification that the individual was approved and that they are now in Dayforce. The applicant or employee would also get notification, but it would be in Dayforce in their message center. Okay. So then that would end. So that's the pretty basic workflow management process. So the summary basically of onboarding is that the onboarding process in Dayforce allows all Navajo Nation departments and programs to enter selected applicants into the system in a timely manner. So no more waiting for DPM, no more waiting for contract accounting or whoever has to see it. So you'll still be able to do that. So that's the end. Like I said, it's really straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and go into the test environment and just walk through um, a demo just to show you what information and then go over the compensation part. So let's go ahead and get into that. Okay, so I am in test environment. So again, as I had indicated in the PowerPoint, you're going to go to the people icon or the three amigos. And here, this is the screen that you're going to get. So from here, of course, all managers will be able to see their employees. So, but when you're entering for a new hire, you'll go to action, you'll go to hiring, and then you'll go to new. So hope everybody got that. So once we get to new hire, again, the same form is going to populate. And from here, this is where you would enter all the information. The first thing we're going to start with is a pay group. So of course you see Navajo biweekly and non-paid pay group. So there are two. So the first for all regular status employees that are coming on or even temporaries, youth participants, we're going to use the Navajo biweekly. The non-pay pay group is for boards and commissions. So we do process boards and commissions currently in JD Edwards, and then they're also going to be entered into Dayforce as well. And the reason that they have to be entered as an employee into Dayforce and JD Edwards is so that they can get their stipends paid out. So that's the code that we have for them. But majority of Navajo Nation will be using the Navajo biweekly. Okay. Of course, you're going to do the name. So we'll just do Sally. Um, Sally Jan Doe. And of course, we'll just go through. So we're going to go to her marital status. And here you can see that there's several options. However, we only need, I'm sorry, we only utilize single and married. And again, this is also working with benefits as well. So these are the only two. So if you're divorced, we would consider that single. If you're separated and you're still legally married, you would still indicate married here. So we'll just go and put her single. And of course, we need her social. And then we're not going to use this expiry date. We don't need that. And then her birth date. And then citizenship, again, with citizenship, we only use US citizen. We don't have any of these other options available. I mean, they're here, but they're not, it wouldn't work. So the only thing that we would need would be, or utilize is US citizen. And the language, we only have English. The hire date, we'll go ahead and put her hire date for today. And then, so I'm going to select her onboarding policy, which would be the Navajo Nation onboarding policy. In production, you're only going to see this plus judicial. You're not going to see this top one. So some information shows differently in test than production. So right here, Navajo Nation onboarding policy. And what happens with this Navajo Nation onboarding policy is that when new hires come on, they get a onboarding task list, which helps, again, with going back to required documents. It helps they're able to go into that and complete their forms, such as the confidentiality agreement, the policy on alcohol and drugs in the workplace, and so forth. And we have a lot of resources there that they're able to, that they have access to. They'll also complete their employee benefits on enrollment through the onboarding policy as well. So this would only apply to like the new hires that are coming in. So we'll go ahead and click that. And let's say that, well, I'm only hiring her today, but what we encourage departments is to get their information in as soon as possible. Even if you planned and let's say that individual needed to give a 2 weeks notice to their current employer, then this would be 2 weeks from today. And that's how the onboarding policy, you could start it today, and that would get sent to them and they would have those 2 weeks to get it completed. Okay. So, but for this, we're just going to go ahead and use today's date on both so that they will get their onboarding policy information today. So we're going to go down to gender and we're going to do an add. The country is always going to be United States of America, and then we'll just go ahead and go with the state province. So this is based off of their address. So we're going to go ahead and give her a New Mexico address. So we'll do New Mexico, and then we'll go ahead and do female, and then we'll go ahead and do female. So we only have female and male. I know that we had, rare situations come up where individual is claiming like non-binary, those other options that, they recognize outside of the Navajo Nation, but we only go with the two, female and male, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and do her address. So again, it has to be a physical address. So we're just gonna do Morgan Boulevard. Well, yeah, I can still do Morgan Boulevard. Let's just say apartment 2, apartment 3, and then we're just gonna go ahead and do, let's just do Yaltahay. So again, we're giving her a New Mexico address. And if you know the county, great. If you don't, that's totally fine. We do have country for Canada and United States of America. The reason we have Canada is Dayforce also works with companies in Canada as well. State province, of course, we're going to do New Mexico. Phone. Going to give her DPM. And if you have their email address, they can be a business or personal, then you can enter that there. So now we're going to go to a managing position. So now this is where I said you would need to know who the hiring manager is. So let's see. Yeah. Nope, I don't have anything. So here I'm going to use our HR director. So you can see it has her position number, her title, her name, and her AB. And here, this will show the list of vacant positions that are within her department or under her supervision. So we'll just go ahead and do the HR generalist. We'll do and see here where it shows the primary location, which is Window Rock. And then the status. So this is the part where we have to provide guides on this because once you get into, the routine of it and you've entered so many, it's going to be very simple. But in this case, it's just getting to know some of the policies behind these fields. So for status, it's always going to be active. Again, we're trying to get these taken away so we could just have the active status here, but it's always going to be active. From that point, you're going to do the pay type. The pay type is going to be dependent on the position, if it's an exempt position or non-exempt. Also hourly. If it's an elected official, again, we have boards and commissions. We also have salaried and salaried, exempt, and non-exempt. And majority of those are for political appointments. So here we're going to go ahead and go by hourly. So it's either going to be hourly exempt or hourly non-exempt. So we're just going to go ahead and go with the exempt. I believe the HR generalist is an exempt position. So from there, the pay class, this is where you would select the introductory employee. So of course, everybody has to serve a 90 days. So it would be introductory employee. Now, unless it's an elected official, but here we would go with introductory employee. We also have introductory employee for the police officers. So we'll go ahead and go with introductory employee. Then we're going to go on to the time off policy. So majority of the Navajo Nation is going to be default unless you're with the following departments: EMS, fire, police department introductory, PTO. We don't have a PTO policy, and then public safety. So basically the time off is based off of their schedules and the policies within the NPPM, because like for a police department introductory, they have to serve a year. But after a certain period of time, they're able to use their benefits. So that's why we have to set up these different policies with that. So, but for default would be for Navajo Nation regular status if you're not part of the departments listed, okay? Time entry would be default. Again, you see different departments here. So if you're with AML, DOTI, EPA, public safety, but it's only if the position you're selecting is cost share. So with AML, majority of their positions are cost shared with at least 10 different business units. So in that case, this will give them a different timesheet within Dayforce that they're able to record their time under different business units, or what they're called is projects. But if you're 100%, then we can go ahead and do default for time entry policy. So we'll go to pay policy. Again, this is based off of their position, if it's exempt or non-exempt. So here we'll go ahead, and I forgot to mention, I'm so sorry. You'll see here there's JB, 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 and then even on top where I did the Navajo Nation onboarding, you'll see that judicial is also here. Judicial will also be using the Dayforce system. So their policies are a lot different from executive and legislative. So they had to have different rules and policies and workflows set up in the background. So you will see judicial information on different forms throughout Dayforce. So just wanted to provide that clarification. So if you're not in judicial, do not select that, okay? So here again, the pay policy is based off of the position. Again, we'll go to hourly exempt. You do see salaried and salaried non-exempt again. Holiday group is always going to be Navajo Nation. Again, you do see that there's judicial holidays and judicial temp holidays. So we'll go ahead and go with Navajo Nation. And this part just goes by, in the background, we have all the Navajo Nation holidays set up. So that's what that's for. Then there's the schedule rule policy. Again, if you're not with EMS or fire, it would be default. Shift trading, we leave that blank unless you're with EMS, fire, and public safety. Overtime, the same, there's nothing, so you don't have to select anything. And then there's payroll policy. So again, you see Navajo Nation payroll and you see the non-payroll pay. Again, the non-payroll pay is for the boards and commissions. So we'll go ahead and select Navajo Nation payroll. If you select non-payroll pay, then you're not going to get paid, or the individual won't. So make sure you're selecting the Navajo Nation payroll. From there, we're going to entitlement policy. So this is where the entitlement policy is where it'll determine your accruals for leave. So this is where we need to also make sure. You see here it has EB and LB, which means executive branch and legislative branch. Then you'll see exempt for JB, which is judicial, judges for JB, and so forth. So for here, if you're a temporary, let's say you're inputting for a temporary employee, it would be no entitlements. But here for this individual that we're hiring, we're going to go ahead and select exempt. Again, we'll have a guide on this on, like I said, for no entitlements, it'll indicate, temporary employees or even political appointments because they're not eligible for any of the accruals for leave. Employee group, we don't need anything. Schedule, we don't need anything. Weekly hours, majority of Navajo Nation is 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, so that would be 40 hours. You don't need to indicate anything for semi-monthly hours, semi-monthly hours of top and bottom, or the monthly hours. So the base rate would be based off of what the initial grade is or the entry level for the position, not unless you have a salary assessment completed. But we don't, here you'll notice that we don't have the GFA 11A or whatever, we used to go by. Here it's just going to be the base rate. I don't know. Sorry, I need to get the base rate. I don't know if that's how much it is or less. I'm just guessing right now. So for daily rate, we don't need that as well. How much? 32.80. Okay, so that would be the base rate for the HR generalist. And again, we don't need this as there's nothing here, so we don't need those. Again, I did provide, I will also provide it on the guides, but I did show you which fields are required to fill out. Again, if they have emergency contacts, you can put that in. For here, we'll just say she didn't provide it, but I'll let her know, you need to indicate that or go back to your profile and update that information. Then onboarding role, we'll just go ahead and leave that link. And here, this again is where we would upload the files. We would click here, browse for files, and I'm just going to select PCQ, but that's not really, it's just a demo. So go ahead and upload. And then once it uploads, it'll close out and you'll see the document here. So then you'll see the document type, and then once you open it, then it'll open the document for you. But this says it can't be previewed. It could be a temporary issue. So I don't know if it's because of the test site issues we're having. So once you're done, you can click comment or you can indicate comment if you want. If not, you can submit. Let's say you don't have some information. Let's say you're still waiting for this, or you're still waiting for, let's say you're having issues with this managing position. But let's say you stop and you're like, okay, I need to come back. You can save it as a draft. And then when you come back in here, all this information will still be saved. So, but we'll go ahead and do a submit. Hopefully any errors, but if anything, so this is where that rule regarding the gender comes up. I can't, in the background, you'll see that says due to federal tax and compliance purposes, a separate assigned sex record is also required for the United States of America with a male or female value. This has been automatically determined due to consistent state assigned sex workers for this employee. So that's why we have that section there. So anytime you're hiring or onboarding an individual, you're always going to get this warning. So if you click OK, then it'll just take you through. But if there's other errors, it will take you back and it will have the X to have an error. You could be missing information. Or yeah, I think majority of it is if you're missing information. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And it'll tell you that your form was submitted successfully. So from that point, what happens again is that it'll go to DPM. It'll come to us for our review. So what happens is we'll get notification in our email center here. And then from that point, I'll be able to see all the actions that were submitted. So in this case, I haven't received it yet. So from that point, we kind of just have to wait till it comes through. But what happens is, let me show you. So I'm just going to show this really quick of how. So once I get the action, so it says a new hire transaction is awaiting your review. It'll have the name. This is what it'll show me. This is what whoever submitted this is what they have entered. So you see all the information here, you see the address, you see the hiring, the managing position. So what I'll do is I'll go through and just double check to make sure everything is correct and so forth. So we make sure that the information is correct so that the employee will get paid and set up correctly. So look here, there's no attachment. So what I would do is as a response, I would put good morning. Thank you for your submittal. However, there are no supporting documents. Please attach and resubmit. So this is where, again, if there's no supporting documents, we can reject it. And then once that's rejected, notification will go back to whoever submitted it. Okay. So let's say we're going to use this. So we're just in test. So I'm not really rejecting anybody. So for this one, let's just say everything's completed. I see everything here. Looks great. This is supposed to be physical. Let's just say I'm going to change that for now. I can go back. So if the supporting documents were here, I could be able to assist the program and fill out, their address for them if they had put a PO box. So that's what we are trying to do with review, is to assist in, correcting any information here. So let's just say there are attachments and then I can accept it. And then it says warnings were found. Again, that just goes back to that gender information. So now that tells me that the response was successfully accepted. Let me check something really quick. This is just where I can check, somebody says I did submit it, I did do this, So then I can see here that Sally Doe, whoever that's the one that I inputted. So that means that it's open and it's pending approval. I can go here and see where it's at. So let's just say, let's see, I can't see myself. Okay, I clicked silent. So I just wanted to show you the workflow. So from here, I can look up anybody. Let's say Yolanda from Benefits said she submitted something. I can go here and say, okay, let me check the status. If I don't see it in my inbox, I can look here and say, okay, she said she submitted something. Let me check. And this is where I'll be able to see that information. So here, this will be able to see that this went through the workflow, and at the end that this was completed, the status. So this is I'm only able to see this. But again, that just shows that, I can check to see, like here we have one that had an error, then I could go back and check to see what the error was. So, but I'm trying to find the one that I just completed to see if she shows up in the system. It does take a minute for individuals to show up once we do accept. So then we kind of have to keep going back in to make sure to see when that individual is uploaded into Dayforce. I think it was Sal's. Yeah, that individual that I entered, she's not it hasn't uploaded yet, but it will, and that will show here, but it does take a while for it to upload into Dayforce. So basically that's what the onboarding looks like once you're starting to complete this process. So that's the demo. I know I have a few questions in the chat. Dayforce sometimes does not recognize real address specifically on the applicant's driver's license. Jennifer, I haven't seen that issue. I know that we've been accepting physical addresses as they're coming in. I haven't seen any that have errored out. If you could send that to our ERP support, if you're not able to update your physical address, we can definitely help with that. For Ron, what happens? We do the onboarding process and come to find out prospective employee did not pass the background check with OBI, almost said FBI. So it's the same process as now, Ron. I mean, if it has criteria one, of course, the background check is required. If it's a provisional hire, it does have a clause in there that if it doesn't come back favorable, OBI does have policies on that. If it does not come back favorable, then it's immediate termination. So then we would have to end them in the system and just, inactivate them. So I guess that's one thing, but it would still apply with the policies. I don't see any other questions. But pretty much that's what it is for onboarding. I know that it's pretty straightforward. I just need to put the guides out for this information. So once you get that, again, it'll be pretty simple, but we're here to assist if you need to come in. We do have some workstations set up to assist if you need help onboarding an individual. I have my team here. Herbert, will this allow for a new hire to come on board quickly? Yes, that is the whole intent of the Dayforce with onboarding. So again, you wouldn't have to wait, doing a PAF, having to go through here, having to go through contract accounting. I know benefits is pretty quick, but you're able to do this. Let's say you made a selection today, you could definitely get that updated, entered today. As long as you have all the required documents ready for upload, and as long as it doesn't, and as long as the position doesn't carry a criteria one. Vera, what do you mean if they are qualified? Corinne, yes, we will be providing the PowerPoint information and training material on our website. We do have, let me show that. So this is the area that will be uploading all this information as far as training videos, PowerPoint presentations, and so forth. Hold on, it takes a while to get to our DPM website. Give me a sec. Vera, I'm not sure if you're talking about qualification assessments. All that still has to be completed beforehand. Qualified for a position. Yes, recruitment did go through that for qualified for a position based on documents uploaded. Again, you would, if it's through advertisement, the applicant's information will go through the recruitment process. If it's for temporary, you may still submit that to the recruitment section for individual assessment. Farron, I don't know if you want to provide a little bit more detail. I know you did do your presentation already.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Vera, for that question. Yes. Individual assessments for the action statuses for motion, demotion transfers, acting status. All of that process actually has to go through an individual assessment request. So, which is not a part of the Dayforce. It's still a current function that we do on a daily basis. So the program would, of course, that individual that's inquiring about a promotion, of course, the position has to be vacant, number one. Secondly, the applicant would need to submit a letter of interest indicating they are submitting interest into a position that is currently vacant. And their justification, their application, their driver's license, their CIB, any other certificates, licensures, higher educational degrees, transcripts that are all going to be part of the application packet. Once the application packet has been gathered and submitted to the hiring authority, the manager or of course, the hiring authority would submit a memo request to the recruitment team indicating such applicant is currently vacant or inquiring about a vacant position. Please complete a individual assessment request for promotion, as well as the position number and the position title that is currently vacant for the particular individual that's seeking that interest. Now, if it's a temporary, they don't need to submit a letter of interest. Yeah, it would be great for the program, the hiring authority to submit a position number if they have a temporary account established or a business unit. So it's easier for us to go ahead and connect information within JDE to go ahead and connect that information to the position that is currently going to be utilized. And once that process has been completed, we try to get it completed in the same day of the request. So when it gets completed, of course, the referral listing memo will be going over to the requester that requested that individual assessment. And if an individual has been deemed qualified, the referral memo, of course, will go back to the program. They complete the PAF process, of course, which was demonstrated by Serenity. But then again, also if the individual doesn't qualify, of course, they would still submit a non-selection letter will be for accounts of the applicant. Volunteers, of course, if it's volunteers for individual assessment, it's the same thing, it's temporary.
Thank you, Farron. So, Carletta, to answer your question on volunteers as well, we're not entering volunteers into Dayforce. So we don't have that function. We are working on our process, like just to get a list or get information of volunteers. So that process is changing a little, but we'll send that out as well. But we're not entering volunteers into the system. Okay, everybody, that's the end. Oh, I was going to show you. So any training pertaining to the ERP trainings or any trainings that we're doing, this is where you would find it. First, our website is dpm.navajo-innocent.gov. And here it would be under ERP, and it would be under ERP training info and dates. So if you go here, this is where the information would be posted as far as PowerPoints, videos, and so forth. So it's taken a while to get there, but that's the end of my presentation. Then we'll be back out. I think this one will have Garrett go over some information, but also be here as well. So, okay, thank you, everybody. So again, this is where, so for the performance and comp training, there are materials here. If you weren't able to attend on May 5th, this is where we have some of that material. So